Hi, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder, and today's episode is brought to you by Peanut. Peanut is a social network enabling parents and parents-to-be to meet, chat, and learn from each other. And we'll hear more about Peanut later, but Dianne has our review of the week.
I do. It says, love this podcast. And this is from Estrabel. I had a baby 4 weeks ago, have met with 3 lactation consultants. This podcast has helped me the most. I just listened to your Oversupply podcast. I really hope you guys touch base on this again soon. I was told to pump 3 times a day at the hospital because I needed a nipple shield. Now I have, or what I think to be, an oversupply problem. Would love more tips and tricks on how to safely help with this and not get mastitis. Thank you. And this is like a huge issue. This comes up all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Well, and like she's in the hospital, so the baby is like, what, a day old, and she's supposed to start pumping?
I hear mamas tell me, they told me to start pumping in the hospital to make my milk come in faster. Why? Why do we need to like alter what nature does on its own?
No, it's going to happen. Just let it happen.
So hopefully this mama is doing well. We will. This is a good one, though. We should address oversupply again. So I am really grateful for that suggestion. So thank you so much. And I'm glad we're helpful. That is we are here to entertain you. That's for sure. But if we can be helpful as well, then that's a bonus.
That is, yes. That's very awesome.
Yes. And I'm going to let you announce what we're talking about.
Well, let's first ask people to leave us reviews.
Oh,
because
yes, that's right.
It's a really wonderful thing. It helps us on iTunes, and we will, it really helps I feel every week we say this. We're like, I don't know, it helps, I don't know. I'm going to look it up so I can actually tell you what it does. But you guys are leaving reviews, and we really appreciate it, and it helps us, and thank you very much.
I know. Thank you. So yeah, definitely iTunes, or you can shoot us a message on Instagram or email or whatever, badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. And we'd love to hear from you. So thank you. And now Abby's going to tell us what we're talking about, because you guys will love it. It's so fun.
I got an email last week from a badass looking for some help. And the title of the email was Lopsided and Shitty Titties. And I almost fell off my chair because I thought it was the funniest thing that I'd ever heard. And Haley Jakubek had a question, and awesome word that and I said, can I please... May we please title an episode this, because this is so funny. So Haley Jakubek, thank you so much for that laugh. And she is wondering, she says, I hope you can help me. I'm a full-time mom, and my baby girl has a boobie preference, and it has caused me to become lopsided. My slacker boob, or as I like to call my shitty titty, is much smaller. And I was wondering if it will even out once I'm no longer breastfeeding. I've tried having her start on the slacker, and she will do fine, but then stop off. And if I switch her to the better side, she seems more content. What else can I do to even things out? So it's also, thank you for the awesome title. And what a great question, and what a great topic, because I think this is very common, and, it's so common.
It is really common.
Asymmetry. First of all, asymmetry in the body is just normal.
Yeah.
But then you have a baby that one side better than the other side, and then you really can be lopsided.
It is really, this is really common, but this is one of those things that people don't necessarily want to talk about, because they don't want to be like, oh, I'm lopsided. I mean, sometimes moms will ask me about it in breastfeeding class and stuff, and oh, well, can one get bigger than the other, or what if, whatever, but what if I make more on one side? Or it is really common that you do make more milk on one side than the other. You wouldn't know it unless you were pumping, because that's usually how people know. But that's really, really common too. And then people go, oh my gosh, when I'm starting, when I'm pumping regularly with, going back to work or whatever, is it going to be lopsided? Can you tell? Nobody is looking at you. And same with Haley. Haley, nobody's looking at you going, wow, your boobs are super lopsided.
Wow, look at that. It's really lopsided.
Or you just fed on the right side, didn't you? Because I can totally tell. It is not obvious to people. It really isn't. But to you, it probably feels obnoxious. And I actually had a very good friend who went through this too. And she was like, my boobs are So obviously, different sizes, it's not even funny. Like, I cannot even get my daughter to feed on the other breast at all. So it does happen. So if Haley were sitting with me, I would ask her a zillion questions that we can't ask her because this was via email. But it's definitely a problem with positioning with the baby, and it probably goes all the way back to the way the baby was positioned in the womb. Yeah. So she's just probably like had some asymmetry herself. Maybe her muscles were tight. Maybe she preferred one side. And I don't know what kind of help Haley had. I don't know if anybody ever helped her get the baby latched in a different position, So if you have the baby, say, across the front of you, and they're doing really well on that side, across the front of you on the left breast, and then you put them across the front of you on the right breast, and they just don't do well there, and that's the slacker boob, and, or the shitty titty, whatever she wants to call it, yeah. Then we put them in football hold on that side, or we put them in a different hold, or we lay down. We do something different with them because something's making the baby uncomfortable to where they can't feed efficiently like they need to.
Right. And that's what I suggested. So, for all of you listening, and it's funny because you can't like really show it. I couldn't show her over email, and I can't show you now. But so you're holding your baby, across your lap, and they're latched onto your left breast. Instead of flopping them over onto the other side, you're just keeping them laying on the same side, and you're just sliding them over till their feet kind of go behind you or next to you. Yeah, that's the football hold. So like you're kind of holding it like you would be like running to run and score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Which is totally what we do every day, right? Like, because I'm like the football hold. I'm like, do people even know? I mean, I guess people are football fans and can figure that out, but if you don't know what that is, that's what that is.
Yeah. And it really does help to, if the baby's comfortable in one position on one breast, to keep them on that side of their body and just move them over into, a different spot. And that's really not uncommon. And a lot of times you will have people say, well, just start on that side. If they're hungry enough, they're going to have to do it. It's like your baby doesn't prefer the other breast because they're difficult.
It's not chocolate milk on one side and like regular milk on one side. Like there's something. They don't prefer it because it tastes different.
Right. There's, I will hear all sorts of things. I think the baby likes the other side better because of maybe the flow is faster, or that side is fuller, or that side, the nipple's different, or, it's just, I hear every single reason why. And what it comes down to is where the baby's comfortable.
Their body is more comfortable in that position.
Yeah, their body is more comfortable in that position. But the cool thing that I think people don't realize is they'll be like, oh, my left side always made more. Okay, well, does the baby prefer a side? Yeah, the baby prefers the left side because it makes more. No, the left side makes more because the baby prefers that side. It's like that's what it comes down to because the baby is stimulating that side more. Yeah. So that side's gonna make more. But it really, it's amazing when you really look at the pieces, how the pieces of the puzzle go together, how, to me, I think it's just so interesting, personally. But I'm sure Haley's like, shut up, it's not interesting, my boobs are lopsided.
She's like, help, yeah.
I know. So what you have to do is, get her feeding on that side to get that supply ramped up on that side. And that's changing her position or taking her to either a chiropractic, somebody who specializes in infants, or physical therapy or something like that to make sure that she doesn't have any muscles that could be a little bit stiff and tight.
But if they prefer one side, it's no problem, right? I mean, it's like if you don't bring them to chiropractic, if you don't because, there's kind of, I don't know.
A stigma.
I brought my child to a chiropractor, and I'm not sure really anything helped. Not to say that chiropractic doesn't work, but if that's not something that you want to do, the fact that you're keeping them on one side and doing a football hold or trying to figure it out without bringing them somewhere, I think that's okay too.
Oh yeah.
This isn't a long-term issue. They will grow into their bodies. They will become more comfortable. It's not
Yeah. It's totally fine. And usually too, if there was a significant muscle tightness problem, your pediatrician would have picked it up, because your baby would start getting a flat head if they were really only on one side all the time and, stuff like that. But, tummy time really helps with that stuff because then it keeps them their neck muscles moving and going. But I think, in Haley's situation, just changing position, because the baby at this point might just be used to this. Yeah. This is stuff we probably should have done like months and months ago when the baby was newborn. But now, I mean, she really might be used to that side, and, just be really comfortable on that side, and that's where she wants to be. And there's nothing wrong. There's really no harm. Like, there's no harm. It's fine. But I think the discomfort is more for Haley because she's more full on one side than the other and feels awkward that she's lopsided. But the lopsidedness, the other thing she said in her email was, is it going to go back to normal? Yeah, absolutely. You're not always going to be like, two
You won't
sizes.
always be like as lopsided as you are now, but like
We're
I
all
said,
lopsided.
asymmetry is totally normal. Like, hold up your two thumbs in front of you, all of you. Everybody do it.
I'm doing it right now, too. Yeah.
Everybody. They're not exactly the same. The two sides of our body, they're just not the same.
Right.
Everybody has that side of their face that they turn towards the camera, right?
Right.
Like, oh, wait. Get my good side.
My thumbs really are not the same.
No, they're not.
I've never noticed that. Like, I got an extra wrinkle in my knuckle. Am I deformed? What's going on?
No, they're just, they're not the same. And this goes for your breast. Look at, examine your breast. Examine your areola, the shape of your breast. Examine your nipple. They're not exactly the same.
No, they're not. But people think that is the root of their breastfeeding problem. Do you know how often I hear that?
It's caused by breastfeeding. Like, it's not caused, like, there's, you were asymmetrical to begin with. Mm-hmm. Of course, getting pregnant and having a baby creates all those hormonal changes, and of course, then getting filled with milk, things can become more obvious. And then obviously having a baby that prefers one boob over the other can make it, more noticeable than it was before. But it's not like,
it's not terrible.
Breastfeeding is not working out for you because, it's not like you're just not compatible with breastfeeding.
Right. No, it's totally okay. But I do get this as a reason why people think they're having breastfeeding problems. And sometimes this will even, like, I don't think half the time people even think of this on their own. I think new mothers hear this maybe from even like hospital staff or nurses or, maybe a family member or a friend or something like that. But they get it in their head that because their nipples are flat or their nipples are large or their breasts aren't big enough or their areola is big, like if their breast does not look like the pinup of, I don't even know, like whose boobs do we see all the time? I don't even know.
Everybody's.
I know, everybody's, right?
Everybody's non-breastfeeding boobs we see all the time.
Right. Like, they're not going to look like that. Like, airbrushed, photoshopped, perfect boobs.
Yeah, right.
Nobody looks like that, and your baby does not care. Like, your baby doesn't know, okay, this side is bigger than the other side, or this nipple is a little bit bigger than the other nipple, therefore I latch better on this side. Like, I never find that to be a problem, unless it's a super teeny, tiny preemie with a tiny mouth and a mother that's got a huge nipple. That's the only time I've ever seen that happen. But it really, that is not the reason why your baby's not latching well or only latching to one side or the other. I mean, it's more than that. There's something else happening there. It's not your anatomy. And I always feel sad when moms feel like there's something wrong with them. Because there's not.
Right. Yeah, but there's so much, we're so obsessed with boobs in our culture. Ugh. It's just like they have to look a certain way. They have to, and I understand that. I get it. Like the lopsidedness doesn't feel good, but I think it's exacerbated too by the expectations of what your boobs are supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. Just by what we see, like we were just talking about, like all the advertisements and the airbrush magazines and all this. You're supposed to look this way, and then when you're going through breastfeeding things and lopsidedness, it's just like all of that, can really affect your self-esteem.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Awful. And a lot of people do think like, oh, well, I breastfed, so my boobs will never be the same. And it's like, it's pregnancy that does it. I don't want to say that ruins them because they're not ruined. They're fine. But it is pregnancy that does it. It's not breastfeeding. And people think it's breastfeeding. And
yeah, there's people that choose not to breastfeed because of it.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Because they think their boobs are going to sag.
They think that their boobs are going to look different. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, that's not it. It's actually pregnancy because, or if you want to blame breastfeeding, technically, yes, because pregnancy, your breasts get larger in anticipation of breastfeeding your baby, and that getting larger and the stretching of the muscles and the elasticity and all of that stuff that cause the breast to get bigger and then might cause some sagging later on in life. Okay, yes, it's because you were pregnant and your body was getting ready to breastfeed.
Because that's what your boobs are for.
Right. But because you choose not to breastfeed because of it, that's not going to make it go away. It
doesn't make it. Right.
It's just, and a lot of that depends on, like, genetics and stuff, too. The elasticity of your skin and how much your skin can handle. A lot of times it goes back into your history of your family and genetics.
Yeah.
But it's not like, I don't know. Do you ever remember watching that show Everybody Loves Raymond?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch that?
I totally watched that, yeah.
Yeah. So for all you people that are super young, probably don't know. I had somebody the other day, I referenced Brady Bunch and this fantastic acupuncturist that we have here just shook his head. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was like, oh my God. And I can't even remember now why I referenced it, but so this is Everybody Loves Raymond, and it was, just a sitcom back in the late 90s, early 2000s. When was it?
Yeah,
maybe not even that
long
like
ago. That.
Yeah,
Ray Romano.
Yeah, it was really funny. But I remember this one episode, and I don't even know if I had kids or not. I think I did have kids because she had the twins and the daughter, or they had the twins and the daughter. And there was this one time where she felt super self-conscious because they knew somebody who had a boob job, breast implants. Like one of their friends came over and had breast implants or something. And she was feeling really self-conscious. And she, because of course her husband was just like, oh, did you see that? Kind of thing. And she went into this big tirade about she goes, I have working boobs. I have working breasts, Ray. I breastfed twins. They are working breasts. And it's just I always remembered that because they are working, they are working breasts. Don't be ashamed of that ever.
Right. I know. Yeah, right. I mean, they're doing they're doing their job.
Right.
And there's no shame in that. And people try to throw shame at that, and there's just not.
Right. And it's not, there's no shame in that.
Society's messed up, not you.
Oh my gosh. Freaking society. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, let's talk more, though. Let's talk more after words from our sponsor. Dianne will take some deep breaths and tell us more about society when we're back.
All righty. Sounds good. It's my favorite topic.
Yeah. Today's episode is sponsored by Peanuts. When I had my first child, I didn't know anyone else who breastfed. Breastfeeding was going horribly, and I felt all alone. I remember searching the internet and getting answers that were conflicting and confusing, wondering what I was doing wrong. I didn't have anyone to ask about their experiences. I had no friends that had babies, no friends that were breastfeeding, and I couldn't watch anybody, never seen anybody breastfeed before. The first time I ever saw anybody breastfeed was when I latched my baby on for the first time. When I found a few like-minded parents to be friends with, actually some that are still my friends, everything completely changed. I became so much more empowered to parent the way that felt right to me. I was so much less reliant on Google, figuring out what I was supposed to do when I found people that were doing things that were similar to me. Peanut is an app to meet like-minded moms in your area, chat, and share advice. It's free to download in the app stores, it's easy to use, and it could be your ticket to finding freedom as a new parent. Peanut is designed to connect people based on similar interests, age, mutual friends, and more. Similar to a dating app, you simply swipe to send a wave. The community feature allows you to create and join groups such as single moms, LGBTQ, or Brooklyn moms. So head to your app store right now and download Peanut and start connecting with like-minded parents in your area. And all of our sponsors and their links and their promo codes can be found at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, along with our breastfeeding resources, all of our show notes with links and information about this episode, information about scheduling your lactation consultation with Dianne. And I also have our breastfeeding tip of the week, which comes from the Badass community on Facebook and on Instagram. And thank you all for submitting your tips, and they were all really wonderful, but one really stood out to me from Stacy Lutz. She says, "It's okay to cry and feel touched out. You got this, mama."
Yes, it is.
And I love that because that just applies to absolutely everyone. You know, crying and feeling touched out and all of that. It's hard and it's so normal. And thank you, Stacy Lutz, for that reminder.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah.
So society.
Society makes us feel bad about our lopsided boobs. I had a friend growing up who was like super lopsided, just like not, you know, before, like as she hit adolescence and through, she was always like really lopsided, and she felt horrible. She hated it.
Now, did she do anything about it?
Well, I mean, you know, like, no, I don't think she did, but and like nowadays, I feel like there's like I don't know. I don't want to feed into it either. Like, you know, they make those little like pad things like that go inside of a swimsuit or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That you could put to make it look a little more even. But again, you know, I don't know. Yeah, you could. You know, I might do that. I think I would probably do that if mine were like visibly lopsided through that time and I was going out or whatever and I felt self-conscious about it. I don't feel like anybody should feel self-conscious about it, but the fact that we do is totally understandable.
I had a mom a few years ago. In fact, I just heard from her the other day. She reached out to me, and she has two beautiful little girls and had trouble breastfeeding because she had that asymmetry and was flatter on one side than the other. And when she was younger, had an implant put in on the one side. Mm-hmm. So had, you know, a little bit more trouble with breastfeeding because of that. And I worked with her with both her girls, and she didn't let her stop her though. In fact, she texted me recently and she's like, "I just have to tell you, this is like my 2000th day of breastfeeding." Like she would keep, because her kids are like 5 and 3 or something like that. And she's still nursing. So, but it was one of those, like, she would, you know, do as much as she could breastfeeding, and then she, you know, had some friends who gave her milk and stuff like that if she wasn't able to completely satisfy her daughters that way. But it was, you know, because she had the asymmetry and chose to put an implant in when she was younger. So it's like everybody has their comfort level with what they want to do. And I don't think everybody should run out and do that even. Obviously that was her, you know, what she wanted to do. But it's not unnormal. It's not uncommon. You know, like it happens. It's a thing.
It is. And so here's another thing that people get worried about is that, and there are some babies that will be comfortable on one side and like literally like only one side.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds like Haley can get her baby to breastfeed on the other side for a couple minutes. Just feels better on the other side. But there's, you know, it's totally possible for you to breastfeed from just one breast.
Yeah, it is.
You can have a completely full milk supply on just one side. I mean, think about people that breastfeed twins or triplets. Mm-hmm. They've got 3 full milk supplies in there.
But, you know, like, I just can't, whenever anybody tells me, you know, something's wrong with my breast or my nipple's too long, too big or too small or too flat or whatever, and it's like, did everybody just have these perfect breasts back 150 years ago when everybody was breastfeeding? Like, is that, you know? Like,
no, I mean, we weren't so obsessed with them, like sizing them up for how, you know, big or how small or how perfect or how unperfect they looked.
Right. And now it's just such, like, immediately, like, I will meet with people when they're pregnant. And sometimes they will call me to meet with me when they're pregnant because their nipples are flat and they want to know if they're going to be able to breastfeed or not. And it's like, where do we get this idea that we're not going to be able to? Like, it just...
I know, that seems to be really, there's so much that goes into this doubt that I think women experience to such an extreme level about our bodies. You know, like, they are just first and foremost, like, advertising tools. Right. You know, so then it's like when we are going to be using them for what they're supposed to be used for, there's all of this doubt. There's all of this, like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. You know, well, it's probably not going to work out. Like, we have all these things in our head that come from, you know, just our messed up view of the female body.
Right. It's just, I just don't get it. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. Nobody ever says, like, if I said to you, I think we're going to have, we'd like to have another baby. Are you going to say to me, oh, if it works?
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't work for me. So hopefully it'll work for you. But if it doesn't, it's okay to just adopt. Like, this is something your body naturally does. And people say to me all the time, oh, I'd like to breastfeed, but, if it works, I'll breastfeed.
Yeah. Oh, people say that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll breastfeed if it works out.
It's like, well, it always works. I mean, not always, but the times where it doesn't, there's a specific reason why, and we can point out that reason, but typically, overall, for the majority of mothers and babies, breastfeeding will happen.
Yeah.
Regardless of what your breasts look like and what is happening with them. I mean, but our society, oh, no, we can't, we have to look at this, we have to look at that. That's why we say, why are we making this so hard? We're making this so difficult.
Well, that's why, breastfeeding is hard enough just as it is alone. Is, brand new baby, learning how to do this, mom and baby trying to get to know each other. It's hard enough. And then on top of that, we have everything else. We have all of this, all the doubt, all of the, society's pressures. And
yeah, it's awful. And then we got to worry about what our body looks like.
Yeah. And then on top of it, then we're feeling, yeah, right. It's just the most vulnerable thing that you can possibly go through, the most vulnerable time of your life. And then you have to worry about are your boobs even?
Are they even, or are they going to go back
fair.
to being even? Right. Yeah. It's not fair.
Right.
And I mean, and we all go through that. We're all like, oh, I just want my body back. I want it to be what it was, or I want, but it's not going to be. I mean, you had a child, you had a human being. It's not going to be the same. As much as we want it to, it's not going to be the same.
No, and I think also too, I think for me is I had my first kid when I was 35. I spent my early 30s just working out, wearing tight clothes and doing the whole thing. And then I had a baby, then had another baby, and oops, I'm 43.
Yeah.
It's just you also age in that time. It's been 8 years. It's been 10 years. Of course my body would be different even if I didn't have kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
As you get older, it just, things do change, and that's the other thing, we don't value aging. The aging process is, we think, oh God, you have to be 25. And I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of beautiful 25-year-olds listening to the podcast. I don't mean to slam you. I'm just saying that there's all of these ideals that you have to maintain that for your whole life. And then when you're aging, we don't like it. When your body's being used for its purpose of, having babies and breastfeeding, then all of that is so devalued. And
we just don't, for some reason, I don't know if I expected that my body at 25 or 30, I was still going to have that when I was in my 40s. Why? All I'm picturing right now is some old person, a Barbie doll head, old Barbie doll head stuck on a young body. It's not even realistic. Why do we even want that? And I mean, my husband says that to me all the time. He's like, do you want to look like a 20-year-old? Do you want to be 20 again? I'm like, hell no, absolutely not. But why would I want to? Why would I want to even look like that again? That's not me anymore.
Right.
And it's I always felt really, as much as you have your days where you're like, oh, I just wish, my hips were different, or, this were different, or that were different, or my stomach was flatter, or whatever that you had before pre-kids. At the same time, it's kind of I'm proud of that too.
Totally. Yeah. I know. We can take pride in the changes that our body's gone through, even though it's hard. It's really hard because it's kind of we're pushing back against something that society's telling us not to feel and not to, value.
It's ridiculous.
But I think there is a bit of a movement going on right now, a body positivity kind of thing going on. And hopefully, we can keep pushing back against all of these very like constraining ways that we're supposed to look and feel about ourselves, because it doesn't do anything except make us feel shitty. Speaking of shitty titties,
right?
Like just make us feel shitty about ourselves,
right? And I
don't want anybody who's like had a baby and is breastfeeding their baby and doing all these like badass things to feel that way.
I hope that nobody said anything to Haley about it, and that's why she's so, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's also
you know,
right, but it's also you know, people could also just wonder, like, is that permanent?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like, does it stay like this?
I know, but it doesn't. It doesn't. No, your body just, you know, adapts and changes again after kids.
Yeah.
But it just, you know.
No, and wondering about it, it's like, okay, so we've covered it's normal, it's okay. You know, like we talked about the positioning thing. And it's also okay to be a little like freaked out by it because, you know, our boobs are a big deal to us.
They are. I mean, for, you know, sometimes I think it's the first thing people see, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, like.
For some people it is.
Sometimes people just don't even look you in the face, you know? Like, they'll just be, like, looking at your breasts the whole time.
Absolutely.
You know?
Totally happens.
It does.
Vouch for that. If you have boobs, you can vouch for that.
You know, but that is why in our society, people have such a hard time with the breastfeeding and extended breastfeeding and breastfeeding in public and any of that. You hear that whole, oh, I support it, but I don't think it should be something anybody should be seeing, or I don't want my older child to see it, or I don't want you breastfeeding in front of my, you know, 6-year-old because I don't want them to get any ideas. And, you know,
yeah.
Ideas about what? That this is what your body's for? You don't want them to have that idea? You know, but what they think our bodies are for, they turn on the TV and they see the Victoria's Secret fashion show on prime time. I don't even know if they still do that because I don't watch too much TV anymore.
Like the swimsuit, whatever thing.
It would be all like their catalog stuff.
Oh, the long, yeah.
And it's
no,
like
I know
primetime TV.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And they stick the wings on the back of them.
Yeah.
And they parade them around in underwear and a pair of high heels. It's like, yeah, because that's normal.
Yeah, I totally walk around like that.
Right. Who walks around like that?
Not her doing it. Not her.
So
I mean, right now and never again.
But that's acceptable in our society.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have high heels and wings.
Yeah.
With like sparkly bra and like bedazzled thongs. That's what we're supposed to look like. It is actually really, really freaking funny.
Yeah, if you think about
it's
it.
So
and then
silly.
They put it on primetime TV. Like, it's like an inch from being X-rated. And we're putting it on primetime TV. Yeah. Like, are you kidding me right now? But we don't want anybody to see breastfeeding in public.
No.
Because your skin might show. It's just...
Right, I might see side boob.
Yeah, some side boob. Hussy! So if you really think, like, it's so awful. But at the time, when you're in it, when you are that mom that people are criticizing you for extended breastfeeding or breastfeeding, like, you just want to crawl away, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Just feel another shame about your body that you know.
It's just endless shame we could feel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awful. So do not be ashamed, mamas, because this is how we make changes.
Yep, your bodies are beautiful and they're, you know, changing shape and they will change shape again. Absolutely.
For the better. All for the better.
Yeah.
Be proud. And tune in next time where we'll talk about something equally as fun, I'm sure. It won't have the catchy title like the Shitty Titties, but it'll be equally as fun.
Yes, thank you, Haley. We really, really enjoyed that.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.